Imagine this. Congress can't agree on a budget, the federal government shuts down, and instead of a temporary furlough, millions of federal government workers are fired. In my opinion, that's not just unfair, it's dangerous. Here's 8 main points to support my opinion. 1. No control over shutdowns. Federal employees don't make the budget. Last I checked, Congress does. Yet it's the federal government employees. Well, they'd be punished for something completely outside of their control. 2. Never been done before in history. In every shutdown since the 1980s, workers were furloughed, not fired. Once funding resumed, the federal government workers went back to work and they got paid. More on that in a bit. 3. Civil service protections exist. The law guarantees due process and fairness in terminations. Mass firings would break those rules. 4. Guaranteed back pay. Since 2019, the law ensures that furloughed employees receive full retroactive back pay. That proves that federal government shutdowns were never meant to be firing events. 5. Economic devastation. Permanent job losses would crush families who depend on steady income, pushing many into financial crisis. Could you go with a sudden job loss that was unexpected? 6. Loss of expertise. Firing entire agencies would erase decades of institutional knowledge and cripple vital public services that many Americans depend on. 7. Unfair scapegoating. It shifts blame away from the politicians, Republican and Democrat, who failed to act, and onto the workers who had no say-so in the matter. And then 8. Public backlash. Past shutdowns already fueled public anger. Mass firings could trigger even greater outrage. Now, let's go back, as promised, and look at historical shutdowns and how federal government employees were treated, so you can see why a mass firing is in such a situation, well, never been done before, and it's unfair. 1. Treatment of employees in past shutdowns. There's 3 points I want to make here. A. Furloughs, not firings. In every modern shutdown since the 1980s, when the Anti-Deficiency Act began to be strictly enforced, federal government employees have been placed on furloughs, temporary unpaid leave status, not terminated. Once funding was restored, they returned to work. B. Guaranteed back pay. After long and painful shutdowns, for example, the 2013 shutdown lasted 16 days, and the 2018 to 2019 shutdown during Trump's first presidency lasted 35 days, and that's the longest shutdown in history. Well, Congress enacted laws guaranteeing retroactive pay. That's now permanent through the Government Employee Fair Treatment Act of 2019, and that law ensures that all furloughed federal government employees get back pay when the shutdown ends. C. Examples of impact, not terminations. Let's go back to the 2013 shutdown. During that one, about 850,000 workers were furloughed at the start. Many were later recalled as essential federal government employees. They suffered delayed paychecks, but no terminations. The 2018 to 2019 shutdown, well, about 800,000 employees were affected then. 380,000 were furloughed, and about 420,000 were required to work without pay. But again, no one was fired, and they all received back pay. And then 2, why firings would be a radical departure. There's 3 points here. 1, never been done before. In over 20 shutdowns since 1976, not a single one led to mass permanent terminations. Employees were always either furloughed or asked to work unpaid, then compensated afterward. 2, there are civil service protections in effect. Terminating employees en masse would run counter to over a century of merit-based civil service laws. Think about the Pendleton Act of 1883 and onward to today. They all serve to protect employees from politically motivated terminations, purging of the rolls. And then you have administrative burden. Firing even a fraction of the 2 million plus, I should say, civilian federal workforce will require massive paperwork, legal justifications, appeals, and processing, making it, functionally impossible to execute fairly during a funding lapse. And then 3, let's look at the historical lessons. There's 2 to look at. Shutdowns already punish employees unfairly because workers often go weeks without paychecks. They're forced to dip into savings, borrow money, or rely on food banks, even though they eventually receive back pay. And then you have federal government contractors who, they're not covered by that 2019 Act, and, they never get reimbursed for their lost wages. And then 2, the public backlash. Long shutdowns have historically generated strong public sympathy for federal workers and political blowback against the leaders, Republican and Democrat, who are perceived as prolonging the crisis. So turning furloughs into firings, I think that would likely intensify that backlash. So bottom line, historically, shutdowns have always been temporary funding lapses, not justifications for mass terminations. So turning them into a firing mechanism, that would not only break with history, but it would also be unfair, legally questionable, and nearly impossible to administer. This is just my opinion. What do you all think? Now, in closing, I think firing federal workers during a shutdown, that wouldn't solve the problem. It would just make things worse. Now, if you believe that Congress and the president should be held accountable, not the everyday federal government employee, hit that like button, share this video, and let me know in the comments. Do you think federal government workers should be punished for shutdowns that they didn't cause? Now for my reminders. 1, keep demanding release of those documents, and you know which ones I mean, the Epstein files and now the Holman files. 2, the next No Kings Music Festival is set for October 18th, 2025. For more information, go to their website, nokings.org. And 3, keep your eyes on the prize. The prize is the White House and democracy in America. Do not get distracted by the foolishness, mayhem, debauchery, and lies coming out of this administration. If you like this video or if you learned anything, please like the video, leave a comment, and share the video. And if not done already, please subscribe to the channel. And to the federal government employees, my heart goes out to you. And I hope everything works out quickly so you can get back to work. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.